Kate Northrup, author of this book, Money, a Love Story, and this is the Money Love Story series. I'm interviewing a bunch of amazing folks about their own money love stories, because the more we talk about money in public, in a conscious, loving way, the more all of us will be inspired to have better relationships with our money, and a really good relationship with your money means a super strong foundation for an awesome life. So that's what we're up to here. I'm here with my friend Hillary Rubin, who's a spiritual life and career coach who created the Art of Becoming coach training program. So I'm really happy to have you, Hillary. Thanks for being on today and for sharing your money love story.
I'm really excited. I know that it's weird. Not that, we all have the story, and as I was looking through just the forward of your book that your mother wrote and the quiz and where you're really putting yourself out there, it's so awesome, because it's going to give permission for so many of us to just go, hey, I don't have to feel shame about this. I can bring it out there, and then there's something that can change.
Exactly.
So I'm excited.
I'm so glad you said that. In some of these interviews, shame has come up as a huge topic. So I think let's just start there. I mean, let's get down and dirty with it, because I know that you're game for that. Have there been you're an entrepreneur now, you run your own business, you run your own show. I'd love to know, just in your history, have there been moments of money shame, and how have you kind of come up against those and dealt with them?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I am Jewish, and I'm mentioning this because there is a stereotype for, if you're Jewish, you must come from money and,
right.
And you're well-to-do. And so growing up for me, being middle class, not really, I guess I was upper middle class, and my parents got divorced when I was 5. So technically the silver spoon was taken from my mouth. So in the beginning of my life, there was lots of money, but I was 5, but even in overnight camp at 5. So it was very privileged, and money was there, but my father was a lawyer who was the breadwinner. And when there was a divorce, my mother had to work many jobs, and he wasn't paying child support. He wasn't paying the money right away, and it was so weird to have money being paid. There's money, installments to take care of your children. Yeah. So I had a brother who was very abusive and acted out, was very angry about the divorce, and physically abused myself and my mother, and would beat her up for money to get drugs. So this is what I saw. And so money wasn't a comfortable thing to have, which has affected me, and we'll share, I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit. But the kind of things of where I've had shame is I went from having money and being in overnight camp. My mother borrowed money from people, even from loan sharks, to provide some kind of life that wasn't really where I was anymore, in the social strata, if you will. Yeah. So here I am in overnight camp with kids who are getting brand new clothes that were Benetton, Tonsarton, Jordache, all that stuff in the 80s. And I had to go, I'm really into fashion and into looking good, because I covered it all up. Yeah. Is that I had to go to secondhand, going to TJ Maxx or the discount stores. And my stuff, I felt a lot of shame, because my stuff didn't necessarily have the labels or didn't have those things. So that was probably one of the first things I could remember. And I wasn't made fun of, so I was still in that circle, but yet I never quite felt like I was like them. Mm-hmm. There was something off, because I came from my life changed. Yeah. I wasn't living the life that a lot of other people were on the material level. Yeah. And then later on, as I grew up, my mother went through some things. She was always working a ton of jobs, worked for the government. I mean, it wasn't ready available. It wasn't like, if I wanted to buy something, I had money from chores. I got jobs, as soon as I could work, I did. So then I could buy things. And there was a moment in my life when my mother had a nervous breakdown. I had a stepfather who was dealing with his health stuff. They were in the hospital, and I had my drug dealing brothers running the house. Yeah. And I had to steal food to eat. So thinking of being a kid in elementary school, having to steal food to eat, and yet on the outside, people even in my neighborhood thought that I had more for some reason. that was a really hard moment. Was if I was going to eat, I had to go along with them and steal food. And that definitely brought up a lot of shame. And over time, it's almost as if I didn't really look at it. I just kept covering it up. And it was like scar tissue, you know.
And that gets, wow. That's a pretty intense start for your money journey. I mean, it really is. And thank you for sharing it so candidly. I mean, it's beautiful to put that out there, because I as I'm doing these interviews, I'm finding that everybody has skeletons in the closet about money, in one way or another. And so I'd love to know, as you left home, grew up, got into your early 20s, mid 20s, how did some of those lessons you learned growing up affect your life? And how did those show up as you were coming into adulthood?
Well, I mean, I always worked jobs. So through high school, I worked, and I work ridiculous. I mean, I wore more expensive clothing than I wear now, because there was, I worked at a clothing store in Philadelphia called Nitwit. That's not even around anymore. And I worked at the store where the outlet. Yeah. So we would have like Jean-Paul Gaultier and Azadine Alaya and Maud Frazone, and I was wearing this stuff because it was 10 cents on the dollar. I mean, it was in the mid 90s, in the, let's say, it was in the 80s, in the late 80s, where, things got a little bit more escalated in our economy. People were credit card debt, spending more than they had. And, it really was this like mad, excessive time in American culture, and so we would get all this stuff, and it was 10 cents on the dollar. So for $40, I was getting, but all my money went towards it, because if I looked the part, I was accepted. And that was really, it was materialistic, the money and value. My values were in fitting in and surviving, and how I was going to do that was how I looked. And so that's how it affected me, let's just say at the end, like high school. And from going to high school to college, I had to put myself through school. I had a little bit of money from my father, which was weird. I went to him, and it's a crazy story. I literally had to dress conservative, which wasn't who I was. And I went to him to ask for money. And it was probably the most shameful time, because I needed help. And because I was going to fashion school, just because I wasn't following in his footsteps as a lawyer, and he didn't have a relationship, and his wife was not very, who didn't care about me, whatever, I mean, that's a whole other story. They gave me, for the first couple of years while I was in college, I would get checks, I think, and he didn't, for I think maybe 1 year I got checks, and their address was blanked out. I mean, it was horrible. It was like, here I am wanting to go through school. I'm putting myself through school in New York City, but I worked retail. I worked. It was like, I knew for me, not like, but it was, I'm going to work and make my own money. Because to me, the feeling of being dependent on that check was horrible. It was horrible. And that was something that really was imprinted, was, okay, I'm going to have to do this for myself. And so the scary thing is that happened later on, where then it used to be where they could sign you up for credit cards. On your first day of college, it was credit card tables everywhere. So I went, cool, free money. In some sense, I didn't really know. However, that was how I was able to afford my supplies and art and school, all the things I was doing. So I got into the dependent on credit thing. I mean, I really fell into the thing that we learned culturally. Our government is in debt. We learned this as a society, specific in this country, to not a good way, and really learned to live beyond my means. I mean, that was really what I learned, and I'm not proud of that, but I also know that it's not entirely my fault. I mean, obviously I can change it now, however, I didn't really have any education.
Very that, and that's, again, like, that was also my story. That's a fairly common story, the getting into debt to not only survive, but also sometimes to look a certain way, which was the case with me, and may have been sometimes the case with you. I just inferring from your relationship. I don't fit in. So then, now, so take me from going to fashion school and now becoming a coach. Like, obviously that's, I'm sure, was several years and a big transition. But You said that you used to wear more expensive clothes than you wear now, and I would imagine as a coach, there's some sense of mindfulness and consciousness that comes with that, because as you're helping other people examine their lives, you're examining your own. So how did that come about in terms of making that transition and coming to where you are now, running your own business as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still healing. There's still things like sitting with it, and I've read a good amount of books about it, and I've done different things. I had to come face to face and honest with it, and really look at the numbers. Like, I can't just keep pushing it aside.
Yeah.
And as time has gone on, I've dealt with, whatever, student loans, different things like that. I have to get on this. I've got to be responsible about this. I've got to educate what I can. I mean, I do a Roth, 401k.
Yeah.
I do have I do have health insurance. I mean, there are things that I needed to get together because I hired a coach. I mean, basically, one of the people who influenced me was Marie Forleo.
Yeah.
In her program back in 2009, when she did this virtual mastery course, one of the months was about money. And she said, okay, you need to see money as a girlfriend. And it was, how's the money in your wallet? And how are you treating it? And she had this whole list. And it made me really look at it uncomfortably. And I really looked at everything. And I went, okay, well, good. Let's look at what I am doing first. That's what I always do, is let's look at what is working.
I love that.
I understand that I already had money from working. I worked at Prada, and I worked, later on, I worked at great companies that I always did the maximum. I mean, I did have a family member who helped me to save and started some mutual funds for me and would have matched my, they actually was challenged, but because I was so disjointed, I couldn't save, because saving money was pain, but I didn't know then. And so over time, I just went, okay, I need to have these things in place. I need to sit and look at where my money's going, just like when you came to speak in LA. I need to look at where are my values. I mean, most of my money goes to food because of my health is most important, and that is what I value. And I will put money towards my health and my education, and obviously living in a home that I love. Yeah. So those things are important to me. And so by looking at all these things, I realized, okay, I just have to go with this head on. I got to look at the money that's coming in, having a proper accountant, not just trying to get away with every write-off under the sun, and just really being mindful, because in between that, I was a yoga teacher. I mean, I just have changed a lot in my going, okay, all these things are exciting to me. And it's interesting because now when I look at it, I look at what's there. I look at where, I always am looking at what can I trim back, where do I want to put things, with my savings, with my business. I mean, we have an S Corp, so it's a flow through, which is tricky. It can be. Yeah. And we have an awesome new accountant, and we had to find an accountant that would hold our hand. I was like, listen, I need you to educate me. If you're going to give me a profit and loss report, okay, I need to go through this. And now in my business, I feel way more money confident because I'm looking at things from a project basis. Nice. And I have thrown money into my business going, I need to have it. And then I'm like, no, I didn't. But yet, some things that we do are those mistakes.
Absolutely.
If we look at it.
Yeah.
So now, with how, my husband and I, we actually have our money together, and I know people might say right, wrong, and he's a saver because he's from another country. So his money imprint and love story is very different because they don't live beyond their means. And so then he came with this other culture of live beyond your means. So we've had to heal a lot between us. And really find that. And I guess the biggest thing because I've educated, I did The Millionaire Mind. Yep. And I did that workshop in 2008. And the biggest takeaway I got, other than trying to not sign up for any of the programs, because it's like, they just know how to hit you, and now let's just keep going. Yeah. I remember that they went through this whole meditation around money and broke it into these sections. And I was in the spender section. And I knew that I was in the spender section because if I have $100 in my pocket, I just know that I would always have been, if it's there, I'm going to spend it, and it was always that it would be done. And I realized that through a meditation, it was because I had these visualizations of what happened with my brother. Yes. Money was pain. That was the love story. It was pain, and it would end up in, death. I mean, it was just not a good, it was a tragic story. So I've had to heal those things, and I will, walk around with a $100 bill in my wallet, and I go into stores and look at beautiful things. Sometimes I put them on hold because that is enough for me, and I don't necessarily go and buy it, but I understand what I'm dealing with,
Yeah, because you looked at, you were willing to kind of peel back the curtain and look at those areas that were painful and figure out, oh, this isn't just about like me being frivolous or me being stupid or whatever. Like, so often we just make it about like, oh, well, I'm wrong, but then we don't even go deeper to find out what is even below that. And that sort of clarity is really powerful, to be able to go into a store and have $100 in your pocket and be like, I'm just gonna look, and like you said, like doing project basis with your accountant is really powerful to see where was the return on investment when you spent that money.
Yeah, and now the thing is, it's something that I'll even talk to my clients is I reward myself with things, and it's not about the amount of money that's spent.
Yeah.
And, for me, I'll go and look around for things that I can treat myself with because I just find that's useful. Some people might not agree with it. But to me, I remember being in a store because I live around stores and stuff. So I go, and it's empowering to go in and go, hey, this is all beautiful. I'm not going to buy it today. Yeah. That is one of the most powerful exercises you could do, because then you're in a place of, I can afford buying those shoes for $100, whatever it is, $50. I don't even care if it's buying ice cream for $10 because you have it today. Food has become these, extraordinary of $15 for like an almond. I won't do. Like there's, like I won't spend $15 for a pair of socks. Like there's certain things I just no.
You don't value it that much.
It's not my thing. Yeah. And that's the thing is you got to know what your thing is. And I've stretched myself with investing in myself, and that's said all the time, in the internet world, sometimes it's true, sometimes it isn't. Right. But I really want to point on two things. One is, it never was frivolous. That's the thing is, when I realized and I got that space of, it just causes me pain, and I have this negative imprint that I still, like even talking about it, I'm moved, and just going, well, you still got to pay attention to that, because the minute that, when we work with how we work with our food or how we spend money is the minute it's like the beginning of the month, I'm like, oh, cool, food shopping, it's full, and I go and I know how I feel. Like I know that when I'm shopping and buying food, I feel free, but I also grew up having to steal food to eat. And I also grew up not having healthy food. Right. So there's a part of me that feels so good, and that I've broken this lineage piece, of I can actually spend money not on survival in a way of just getting anything, that I am thankful and appreciative that I can go into Whole Foods or go into places, and I will find a bargain. I will use a coupon. I have no fret of like, hey, it's $1 off. I even did that the other night. It was like, hey, wait, I forgot to use a coupon. And I gave the guy a coupon. He gave me $1. I mean, that was the easiest money I could have gotten. So one of the things that I realized is I remember going into a store nearby, and there was this really cute bag, and I was working on a project that was really intense. And I was looking for something that would give me a little incentive, because for me, the incentive helps me to stay motivated. Yes. And I went in, and the girl's like, well, why don't you just buy it now? I said, no, if I buy it now, it's therapy. If I buy it after, it's actually a reward. Yeah. It actually has a different meaning. Yeah. And that's really what the difference was, is looking at when I'm spending, there's a meaning behind it. Yeah. And being conscious of that. And then I will have my moments of buying things because I don't want to miss out. It happens.
Oh, of course.
And so, so that's basically, it's a really good awareness. And I'm just happy to be here to talk about it, because just even talking about it, just allows me to go, actually, I'm a lot further along than I thought, which most people are.
That's what's so powerful. That's what's so powerful. And that's what I love that you said, let's start with what's working first. When you were going through Marie's course, let's start with what's working first before we start beating ourselves up for the wrong. And to say, actually talking about this, I realize I'm a lot further along than I might have thought. So Thank you so much for sharing your story. I love what you're doing in the world. I'm really grateful. If listening in, you want to check out Hillary, she's at HillaryRubin.com. And if you'd like to find more money love stories, please visit moneyalovestory.com. And when you buy my book, you will get access for free to a 2-hour live online event I'm doing called A Course in Having Enough. And I'll have guest experts Barbara Stanny, Amanda Steinberg, founder of dailyworth.com, and Marianne Williamson joining me for that evening. So check that out, moneyalovestory.com. And thank you so much, Hillary, for being here. I really appreciate your story and just sharing from the heart. That was awesome. I got chills a couple times.
Well, thank you. I've never really shared it, so I'm really just feel honored to be able to share it with the community, and hopefully it inspires at least one person, if not more, to really see that you don't have to feel shame, and it can get a lot better. I can promise you that, especially with your book. I mean,
oh, thank you so much.
That's for sure.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Bye.